Our host, the world-renowned Christine Enville, an IFBB professional, 3 times world champion, a mentor, an icon, and of course, a founding co-owner of the best supplements money can buy, International Protein. In this episode, we learn how much you should aim to lose during your shred and in what kind of time frame. We discuss some best practices for shredding, planning and management techniques, and how not to shock your body to avoid negative results. So today's topic, how to shred from diet to gym routine. Christine, what have you got for us?
Okay, everyone at some point in time, whether it be for a competition or whether it just be for personal reasons, is going to want to drop some weight, or obviously what we call shredding. A few different factors involved with that. Obviously, you talked about diet, you talked about gym routine, and there's supplements. On top of that, there's what it is exactly that you're trying to achieve. Are you going for a bodybuilding comp? Are you going for maybe figure bikini comp for the girls, or are you just doing it to get in shape, like some of those 12-week challenge kind of things? So it's always been around. Diet is probably one of the most popular topics that people talk about. Mm-hmm. So I'll break it down from starting off with the diet, and then I'll talk about the training programs. So when it comes to diet, obviously, there are a lot of different ways to diet, and we've probably talked about some of those in the past, but the main thing obviously is counting your macros, and then it comes down to whether a person's going to follow like a low carb or a high carbohydrate or a low fat, or what type of diet that they're actually going to follow. So when it comes to your diet and starting deciding that you're going to shred, the first thing you probably need to do is look at obviously what the goal is and when that is. So, if you're starting out and you have a competition, first competition, you might want to look at something like a 12-week plan. You don't want to make it so long that you're just not going to stick to it, because it's forever. And you don't want to make it so short, because you might underestimate how long it actually does take to do properly and to get in shape. So starting off, let's say 12 weeks is, a good place to start. And I will actually, at the end of this, go into a little bit more detail on what you can expect to achieve in that point of time, and what to do if you are going to do shorter or you are going to do longer. So number one would be, let's look at a 12-week program and look at, where you are. Like, do you need to lose 5 kilos in that 12 weeks? Do you need to lose 10 kilos? Do you need to lose 20 kilos? Now, all of those, within reason, are actually possible, and a lot of it does depend on how hard you're going to work and how severe you want to cut your diet. Now, my theory particularly for bodybuilding, where you're trying to retain muscle, is you don't want to go over about 1 kilo a week. So if you've got a 12-week diet, probably aim for somewhere around that 10 to 15 kilos that you need to lose, because obviously in there is going to be some fluid, which doesn't really count because it doesn't take a negative calorie to drop fluid, but you will lose fluid throughout that process. So looking at where you are and where you think you need to be, if you think it's around that sort of 10 to 15 kilo mark, 12 weeks is perfectly fine. So that's the first way to set out. If you've got,
and of course, if you drop it too quickly, you're going to get stretch marks and things like that potentially as well, right?
Depends on your age.
Yeah.
That whole thing of loose skin depends on, what degree. Like, most people who aren't, chronically obese aren't going to get too much of a problem with the loose skin, doing it over that kind of a time frame. It's really where someone has extremely stretched skin from being, super large, where they'll find that they diet and they still have that baggy skin. But you normally have to have been fairly extremely overweight to get that. If you're just a regular kind of off season, or carrying that 12 kilos or something like that, you're probably not going to notice that type of thing. What you do risk more of is you try to do it too quickly, you're going to burn more lean muscle mass and lose more lean muscle mass as well as body fat, because your body's it's looking for fuel, and unfortunately, whilst you have all those fat stores, it just doesn't work where it only takes your fat stores.
Right.
Yeah. If you go too negative calorie, too severe, unfortunately, the body will take from the muscle, particularly if you are training, which kind of sounds like it's contradictory, because obviously you train to preserve the lean muscle, but that's contingent on you actually feeding that muscle as well. Mm-hmm. So number one, majority of people are going to be good with a 12-week diet if you're looking at losing that kind of a weight amount. If you've got 20 kilos to lose and you have an amount of about 20 kilos to lose, then you really do need to already plan on leaving a longer time frame to do that. And if you've only got 4 or 5 kilos to lose, then, maybe you don't need to do 12 weeks, but maybe you can put 12 weeks in your mind. And if you hit it after 6, happy days. So that will be like the first part, number one, with your diet. So number one, you pick that. Number two would be then you do have to choose what method are you going to use. Now, as you know, I'm not a big fan of the zero carb, particularly, assuming here that you're going to be going for some kind of bodybuilding style competition, because you're going to be weight training, you're going to be doing a lot of cardio, and we'll talk about that under the training, but you need the energy, you need the carbs, and that's your friend when it comes to that. Like, your performance in the gym does come back to what you're fueling your body with. So you want to set your diet up so that you're constantly fueling your body. And that's where, we've talked previously about having that sort of 5 meal a day type structure. You need to work out, how much you need to, like how negative you need your calories to be to achieve that. And that's where that sort of 300 to 500 calories a day deficit from where you are now. Now, this is all kind of complicated because you're thinking, how on earth do I find that out? You do need to do some research on your food. You do need to start looking at what you're eating. You do need to know what's in those foods.
It comes back to measurement.
Absolutely.
Every time we talk, it comes back to measurement and discipline.
Yeah. So if you don't want to count your calories, then you at least have to benchmark where you are. And even if you don't know what's in the food that you're eating, you need to know how much you're eating. So you can say, okay, I have, a cup of oats, I'm having a scoop of protein powder, I'm having this much chicken. Even if you don't exactly know what macros are in that, I would suggest that you do go find out. But if you don't, that's your benchmark. And then to come back from there, you do need to reduce, but you do need to know what's in your food so you know how much to reduce. Otherwise, you end up going to the extreme and you might cut out too much of something. You really want to try to keep those meals fairly even, and you want to reduce like a little bit from every meal so that you're not like having a big patch in the day where you're very low in energy, very low in calories, because that catapults into the fact that you're going to probably try to, your body it's going to start craving something. You're going to go out and cheat and eat the wrong food. So set up a structure that really it feeds the energy when you need it. So you've got the energy to train, you got the right carbohydrates to recover, you got the right protein for recovery. And you set your diet up in that method. So knowing what's in your food really is, what you need to do. There's so many apps around nowadays.
MyFitnessPal, for example, it's a good one, right? You can scan the actual product, and 9 times out of 10 it pulls it up and gives you all the stats on the actual food.
Yeah, and to be quite honest, bodybuilders tend not to eat a huge variety of food. Like, it is very basic. Like, you'll eat some either chicken or fish or lean beef, rice, maybe pasta. Vegetables are obviously very easy because they're quite low in pretty much everything, unless you're looking at potato and sweet potato and pumpkin and those kind of starchier products. And then most people are going to eat oats. So it's quite simple. So it's not like you're having to look up 100 different foods. So my recommendation really is learn your food, know your food. And
then your quantities.
And then obviously from that falls out to the quantities. So we have talked a lot about, different macros. As I said, my preferred range is having about 35% of your calories coming from protein, about 25 from fats, and then the balance from carbohydrate. And that's a really good, it's very balanced. It gives you the energy that you need. It gives you fats to help your joints, give you the fats that you need, and the protein for recovery. So then when it comes to shredding, it really is coming down to the negative calories. So obviously diet is one way to make your calories negative, but then the other way to do it is to burn more. So let's assume, from your weight training point of view, you actually should try to not really change your routine from off season to on season very much at all. So I know when I started out, it was like, you went from off season, you might've been doing, your 10 reps and your 4 sets, 10 reps kind of thing. And then the trend at that time was like, as soon as you went into comp prep, you'd up your reps. And that's probably the last thing that you should do, because straight away your strength dropped, and a drop in strength related to a drop in size. Particularly if you're early on in your bodybuilding career, your body will definitely it will definitely respond to that in that way of saying, well, I don't need this size anymore, because it is definitely, the size and the strength is very related. Sorry, the muscle size and the strength is very related. So therefore, if you're not pushing at this heavier weight, the body automatically drops that size if it hasn't got that weight anymore. So I actually recommend that you do for everything, try to keep your rep range the same on majority of your workouts. Now, some people will change up a few different exercises what we call for shaping and, to try to kind of bring out a little bit more definition. But overall, your basics like your bench presses and your squats and all your back exercises and those really key core exercises, try to keep your same weights that you were pushing in the off season. You might lose a few reps, but you got to really try to maintain those. So that's the training aspect should be the same pretty much all round. And then you start to change up your cardio. So your cardio is where you play with the calories, the calorie burning, and use the cardio and that new kind of hybrid weighted cardio where you might be using some lighter weights, high reps, and trying to like shape a little bit more through that. Use that as a way to kind of to bring in the definition that you're looking for. So essentially, if you look at this model, you're bringing your calories down, you're bringing your energy expenditure up through cardio, but you're keeping your weight training as the static, as the one constant throughout that equation. So so during the shred, obviously you're starting off on your diet. You've worked out what you're on in the first place by just looking at what you're doing before you actually start to diet. Reduce that little bit per day, a little bit of calories, 300 to 500. Females normally 300.
And balanced across each meal.
Yeah, so don't take one meal out, 300 calories and say, okay, that was easy.
Yep.
So if you've got 5 meals and you're dropping out that, that 300, so across those 5 meals, you really are looking at what about, 80 to 90 calories or something per meal. Like you're not looking, or even less than that, you're not looking at a huge amount. So you're not going to notice that much. If you're dropping out 500 calories, then it's 100 calories per meal.
Whereas you drop out your last meal before you go to sleep, you're definitely going to notice it.
Yes.
Yep.
There's going to be a lot of hunger, and depending on what that meal was, you may be dropping out proportionately too much protein or something. So I also try to drop, the protein and the carbs and the fats proportionately so that ratio stays the same. So then, you're starting off on that, you're going along, you're tracking your weight loss, you're looking at yourself in the mirror because weight loss is not everything. It is a good idea to get some, as we've talked about scans before. It's so easy now to get a scan. It used to be a bit of a deal to try to get one of those, 20 years ago. Now a lot of gyms will once a week have someone comes in and does scans and you just pay, your $30. So it's not if you're trying to get good results, it's a really good idea to get something like that done, even just monthly. To make sure that you are actually losing the body fat and not the lean muscle, because obviously if you're losing too much lean muscle, you'd want to readdress and look at what you're actually doing. But you track along, you hit a plateau where you feel like your body's not changing, and then that's where you'll say, okay, now I need to increase my expenditure. So when you're tracking along, I normally would go the first time I hit a plateau, I would try to do more. And then the next time I hit a plateau, I would try to drop my calories a little bit more. And then the next time I'd try to increase my expenditure again. So only in extreme cases would you try to do both. And that kind of gives you that leeway where you're not getting to a point where you're having to do 2 hours a day of cardio because you just keep on increasing what you're doing, or you don't get to a point where you're dropping your calories that low that you're, basically going into starvation mode and your body tries to hold on to everything. So if you're weight training, doing cardio, you'd probably, for females, try not to go below about 1,200 calories a day. If you're hitting that point, you need to kind of address if this is the right time for you, because you're kind of jeopardizing your health. If you're starting to go into that low calorie kind of regime, you've maybe suppressed your metabolism. Guys, that might be around about 1,800 calories, but it's so individual depending on your body size, body weight. Totally different for someone who weighs 50 kilos versus someone who weighs 150 kilos or 100 kilos even. So a lot of it is very individual, which is why you need to sort of find where your baseline is. So then obviously the cardio again, starting off with your baseline, and everyone is different. But if you've been doing zero cardio in your off season, then half an hour a day is plenty to implement into that routine. If you've already been doing half an hour of cardio, then obviously that's your baseline. And if you're going to increase your cardio, you don't have to go crazy and double your cardio. You can literally add 10 minutes, and that will make a huge difference. So it's all about that incremental plan, and also thinking about it, in the 12-week time frame. Say, let's assume you hit a plateau every 4 weeks, so that's 3 times that you hit a plateau. You've got to think about too, what's realistic for you to be able to do. If you're going to double your cardio, and say if you had to change it one more time, are you able to actually do an hour and a half cardio? If you go to half an hour to an hour and then to an hour and a half. Like literally, can you do that? Whereas if you can kind of go an extra 10 minutes, normally people can squeeze an extra, 20 minutes into their day overall, or look at different types of cardio. Like, can I do, mix it up and do a more high intense type of cardio? Do I do something which is more effective, takes less time, or does it work better for me if I do like a longer, lower intensity type of cardio? So I'm a big fan of doing a mixture, but it's that thing where different people will respond better to different things.
And you also do your cardio fasted, correct?
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Why is that?
It's because when you burn calories on an empty stomach and you haven't got that food there as an immediate source for the body to use, the research is that after that you continue to burn more calories for about an hour and a half after that, whereas when you have the food available in your body, stored in the muscle and basically in your bloodstream to be used for energy during your workout, you don't get that afterburn effect.
Yeah.
Like you burn the calories you increase your metabolism while you're doing the training, but then after you finish the training, it just goes back to normal.
I just want to point out to all our listeners, I am here to ask all the dumb questions, so you guys don't have to. So if I do ask silly questions, there's a reason for it. There's a method to my madness.
Yeah.
So
someone asked me, but wouldn't the extra food that you ate beforehand allow you to work harder and burn more calories?
But isn't digestion the hardest thing the body can do?
No.
Okay.
No,
Dumb question. Perfect example.
I don't believe so. People say that, and I know that's been a theory over the years as to like negative calorie foods because your body actually burns more calories digesting it. But I think all of that got debunked.
With obesity. Yeah.
I don't know. With actual research, there is a post on my Facebook page that I shared across from a particular scientific journal. I think it might be the Nutritional Journal, and they actually had done a lot of research on if there were any foods that in fact were negative calorie, and it was not true.
Okay.
It was just wishful thinking.
Yeah.
So obviously, digesting is a process, but like physically forcing your muscles to work and creating energy is definitely a way more efficient way of burning calories. So unfortunately, no. But as far as will you burn more calories if you've got more energy in your system to do that, I don't know if there's any research exactly on, if you have food and you burn 100 more calories here, does that equate for the afterburn? I think just that whole concept of keeping your metabolism higher for a longer period of time suits a lot better. What I like about it and why I also do it fasted is because I do it first thing in the morning, and I don't necessarily have after my weight training meal, I don't really eat carbohydrates. So in theory, when you talk about recovery, supposedly that's the best opportunity to do that. But on the other side, eating carbohydrate at night when you're trying to diet is not a good thing. So it's a bit of a contradiction there. But if you do a fasted cardio session, you put your body into that state again of wanting to take up the carbohydrates. So first thing in the morning, you do the workout, you eat the carbohydrates, your body's in that hyperactive state of wanting to receive the carbohydrates and store them, and then it's stored them ready for my weight training session in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So for me, it's the perfect recovery scenario. So you get the extra calorie burning and you still optimize your uptake of carbohydrate in that. And I also like to eat carbohydrate in the morning.
Yeah.
So
don't we all?
Yeah. It fits in all aspects, and then it's in the system to recover. So that's the, I guess that's the diet side of it. That's the cardio side of it. And then obviously the supplemental side of it. We've done the podcast on fat burners. I obviously like, my carne strip, to do like pre-cardio. So I'll take that with my Amino Recovery and my Brutal Pump as my pre-workout fat burning, muscle recovering stack before I do my HIIT in the morning. And, you can work around utilizing, different fat burners and see the success that you have. And again, sometimes it just helps to stop you feeling hungry in that respect, and other times it will actually assist with increasing your metabolism even further. So it's you look at it like an aid. It sort of makes it just that little bit easier. So, as we've said, a lot of the fat burners, you're not necessarily going to sit there, do nothing, eat chips and pizza and everything and drop weight. But when you're following, a restricted calorie program, you're doing your cardio, you're doing your weight training, and then you take a fat burner on top of that, is obviously when they're most effective. So people kind of argue, well, do they actually work because you're doing all of that already? It just makes it that little bit easier, because a lot of the time it is an energy thing, where when you are on restricted calories and working very hard to cut up, you need the extra energy. You're feeling a little bit low. So anything that helps give people energy is obviously going to make things seem easier and allow you to continue to work harder. So supplements, obviously it's a personal thing, but it's something that people definitely look into, to try to improve the effectiveness. Obviously with the carnitine strip, we've talked about how without the carnitine, you can't burn the body fat. We've been talking to people recently who've been, using the carnitine strip, and it is exactly that, where you hit a plateau, and a lot of the time you hit that plateau because your body doesn't have enough carnitine to continue to burn the fat. And I've experienced exactly the same thing throughout my competing time, where I'd be doing everything that I would normally do, and just finding that I was getting a sticking spot. I wasn't getting the fat to shift off, in those last couple of places, and then I would realize that I hadn't been taking any type of carnitine supplement. So
you can't take too much of it either, can you?
No, it'd be very, very hard to take too much of it because
So you have it 3 times a day?
You can do, but I actually have equivalent to 3 servings once a day.
Right.
Yeah, I have quite a large dosage because
in the morning.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I will do it before my nighttime workout as well, because it's non-stim, obviously. So you can have that in the evening, and it's not going to affect your sleep. But I do find that it does actually give you energy. So in a way, it does kind of like
I find that too.
Yeah. So it really depends. If I feel like I need it, I will sometimes do again amino recovery and carnitine strip as my pre-workout before my weight session. But as I said, I'm not really training for anything specific, so I just kind of cruise along in my weight session, so I don't have to worry as much.
And what about your iso cuts?
Okay, so that's I guess the what you choose to eat on your diet.
Yeah,
it's the perfect protein solution, really, because if you're looking at your calories and you're looking at taking in protein, then you obviously need to be really mindful of, you're obviously not going to be eating a lot of red meat because there's a lot of extra fat. Even though it can be lean, there's still a lot of extra fat. Like the leanest beef that you'll probably find in the supermarket is about a 90% protein, a 10%, maybe a 5% fat. Chicken breast is naturally around about that kind of 3 or 4% fat. So protein powders are obviously a perfect solution because one, the speed of digestion for post-workout, for recovery, the right amino acid profiles. But then when you look at our isocuts versus say our amino charged WPI, both of them are isolate products, but the isocuts carries the fiber with it, which brings the calories down, and it also has the fat burning ingredients. So it has the green tea, has the green coffee, has the garcinia, has the inositol, has the carnitine, has the ingredients which actually help increase your metabolism. So if you were to take amino charged WPI or isocuts, get your same amount of protein from either, and work that into your diet, you will actually notice the difference on the isocuts in that you are essentially saving a few calories and enhancing your metabolism and getting that increase in metabolism. So working into those 5 meals, if you're doing, 3 protein, like two meals that have like what I call a chicken or a, chicken or a chicken or a chicken or a chicken, because there's really, when you're dieting, what else do you want to eat?
Yeah.
And then the other 3 meals, like say, your breakfast, say your pre-workout meal and your morning tea kind of thing might be made up of, isocuts as the protein. And that's what I would do when I was cutting up for a comp. I would always use the protein, which is going to give me the best bang for my buck in terms of fat burning, lower calories for the same amount of protein, and and also that fiber to help me feel fuller. So you're not going to get that hunger going from meal to meal. So that is why, when you're actually setting up your diet, the type of food that you're eating is so important. Isocuts was designed to be used like that. If you're, as I said, I was making a joke about bodybuilders not eating a lot of different types of foods, but, there's a reason for that. That, you can eat anything to get your calories and anything to give you carbohydrates, but we've all found over time that certain foods make us feel fuller. So we're not as hungry. Certain foods seem to, provide the energy, in a better way. Like, oats is so popular because it's so low glycemic, really delivers the energy nice and slowly, and makes people feel like they've actually eaten a meal. People will find that, something like sweet potato is so popular, but it bloats, and the energy delivery of it compared to rice, like the same amount of calories from rice versus sweet potato, is totally differently. But then, white rice does digest very quickly, which for some people is kind of a negative, but then at the same time when you're dieting, you actually like that feeling of something having kind of burnt out of your body quickly. You don't feel like you're sitting around sort of sludgily, but you're not hungry. Like, if that makes sense, it's a kind of a weird situation where it burns quick, but you're not left starving versus something which leaves you empty and feeling hungry, which some of the just straight up isolate proteins can do. But something like the isocuts has got the fiber in there, which will help to fill you up and, basically, no calories but volume, which is why, again, why I eat vegetables.
It tastes really good too. Like at first, because it's got like peppers and things in it, doesn't it?
It's not so much. It's got cinnamon, and obviously the green tea is kind of got like a bit of a bitterness because of it's a very pure form of green tea. It's very high in what we call the EGCGs, which is the epicatechins, which is what's responsible for the fat burning in the ice in green tea. So most green teas have got like about 60%, and this is like 94% of those active parts. So it's a very powerful fat burner, one.
At first, when I first had it, I was like, oh, that's different. But actually, over time, it's become my favourite.
Oh,
so,
good, good, yeah. And that's, it's about when you're dieting, it's about choosing foods that you like and that digest well with you, and that mentally satisfy you as well as nutritionally, because I think sometimes we underestimate the mental side of food. Like, for example, a simple thing like an apple, which has crunch and juiciness and a bit of sweet and a bit of tang, just having an apple a day when you're dieting kind of gives you that something to look forward to. And I know a lot of bodybuilders used to cut out fruit from their diets, which was, because it's sugar, but natural fruit sugar that's full of like a whole bunch of other nutrients and fiber and burns totally different to as if you were eating cane sugar. And obviously not only just because of that, but also because it has the fructose, which is a lower GI sugar. So it's that trade-off of, yes, you might be getting a few calories coming in from some simpler sugars, but the mental aspect of being able to stay on the diet because of that and taking it around the training time, either post or pre, when your body's either going to be using that energy or using it for recovery, then it's the perfect time and you don't have to eliminate that from your diet because, like I say, the mental aspect of food, having something that tastes good, like your protein powder that tastes good, that also is, burning fat like the isocuts, but foods that you enjoy, give you something to look forward to is also a very, very important part of the cutting process that we don't always talk about. Like, you can be a hero and you can tough it out and you can, do it really, really hard, but to be able to do that 3 or 4 times a year and have a successful competitive career where, you climb the ladder and you become, at the top of your game and you have to do those multiple competitions or keep it going for week after week after week. You have to make it something that doesn't make you dread doing it. You got to incorporate it and make it something that's easy, relatively easy to do because of what you've chosen and how you've chosen to do it. So that's essentially that. But just coming back to the time frame and all that kind of stuff, like, obviously the less weight that you have to lose, the better. But then the flip side of that in bodybuilding, when you're trying to gain size, and that sometimes you do have to put on a bit more weight than what would be considered, desirable. I know I used to drop about 26 kilos.
That's a good effort. In 12 weeks?
No, I used to use about 26 weeks.
Right.
So 20
kilo a week. Yep.
Yeah. Like it would start, my first show would be maybe 20 weeks in, and then I'd have like a series of competitions. So by the time I finished my competitive run, which might be 3 or 4 shows, it'd be another 6 weeks would have gone, and I would have tightened up probably another, 4 kilos over that point of time. And as I said, there's some, in the initial phases of a diet like that, where you're coming from holding a lot of extra fluid and food weight and extra glycogen in your muscle because you've been, eating a lot of food, you will drop in those first probably 2 or 3 weeks, you potentially will drop about 5 kilos, and then it will kind of trail off to that more realistic kilo a week. If you can accelerate it at the start, and then the last 6 weeks get it down to like a half a kilo a week, so you're not having to still really come, crashing in, then that's even ideal. But again, I always went on the theory that you had to leave yourself room to move in case you did have a stagnant period that lasted for more than what you would expect, because sometimes they do, like your body will get very stubborn and you do try a couple of things and it doesn't work, and you have to kind of try a little bit harder, and before you know it, 2-3 weeks has passed, and you got to catch up and get back on track. So expect the unexpected when you're prepping for a comp.
And that'd create some real stress, wouldn't it?
It does, which again holds fluid, stops you from dropping weight. Stress is really the enemy of anyone who's trying to compete. It could also start to catabolize muscle, so you really want to keep out of that stress zone. And see that's why you don't want to force yourself into a situation where you've got 4 weeks to go, but you've got 8 kilos to lose, because it's never going to be a good result.
Okay, so if we were to summarize this, it's having one really tight control method around it, 1 kilo a week.
Yeah, no more than. If you can, if you are in a great position where you only need to do half to 3/4, even better. But be realistic and don't expect on average to do more than 1 a week.
Yep, and across your meals, just drop a little bit across each meal, so you're not starving yourself.
Correct. Yeah, and every
not
time
shocking
you do
the body.
have to drop, just drop that little bit off each meal. Like if you have to make an adjustment and you have to drop out another 300, again, the temptation might be, let's just slash that meal right there. There's 300 calories, but the reality of actually sticking to that is a different story. So yeah, just take a little bit out of each.
Yeah, and is there anything else I've missed?
I don't think so. I think also
the main
obviously
points?
Supplements. I guess really the main point is pick food that you like.
Yeah.
If you don't like fish, don't put it in your diet.
Yeah.
If you don't like salmon, me, don't put it in your diet. Like really, obviously, like being realistic, don't put chocolate in your diet. But if you can't,
How do you take it out? So delicious.
No, well, the thing is though, and this is the little secret, maybe, once a week you do have chocolate, but you can't have a block of chocolate. Like maybe it's 10, 20 grams.
Yeah.
You get that really nice thin chocolate. Or, you have that treat once a week, which is not a binge, mind you. It's not a free-for-all. It's like a one meal, which is maybe a little bit different, a little bit higher in calories. It has like a couple of 100 calories extra. So you've got that mental thing to look forward to. Gets you through each week.
Mm-hmm. Well, this all makes a lot of sense, Christine. Thank you very much. I'm sure there's some very appreciative listeners, and this is going to add a lot of value to their lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ash.
Words of wisdom. If you like what you've heard, recognise that these tips, they're free. So show your support by becoming a loyal international protein customer by jumping online, hunt our product down and hit that buy now button. So once again, like, share and subscribe to our podcast so we can continue to bring you these episodes from our one and only Aussie muscle guru, 3 times world champion, Christine Enville.